All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and we have officially launched the Washington Commanders 2024 training camp. First training camp not under the regime of Ron Rivera in a while. But we have a lot of different major topics to talk about. First of all, Washington is apparently willing to pay Brandon Aiyuk the money that he wants. And Adam Peters and those guys, Dan Quinn, they held an entire presser. A lot of important quotes came from it. One of the most important ones was that they handled that situation internally and they're not worried about him having that photo of the practice. We also have Jaden Daniels not starting yet. We have a second-round rookie defensive tackle injury update in Johnny Newton and where he's at currently. We have a lot of different things to take away from this presser. We also have some views of what the training facilities and the practice area is going to look like, so I'm going to show y'all those angles as well. We have a lot of things to talk about. We even have some updates outside of the Commanders towards the end of the video that we're going to get to as well. And before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content. Again, everything training camp I have you updated for. I'm sorry this video is coming out so late, but this is not gonna stop me from doing a full breakdown of day one of training camps. If we get any information, if we get any clips from it, best believe you'll see those clips and you'll get a full breakdown, position group by position group, player by player, of everything that went down in day one of training camp, which should technically be starting Wednesday, July 24th by the time you're seeing this today. So make sure you stay tuned for all of those updates and more. Anything Commanders going on, if we sign a player, if we cut a player, once we start cutting the roster down, I'll do projections and analysis and breakdowns of what actually happened, all of that type of stuff. So stay tuned. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get to it, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so first of all, here is what the practice area is going to look like, especially when fans are attending. This is like one of the areas that the fans will be at. So just to give you like an idea of what everything is going to look like. And then you also have a certain setup of what is everything that's going down with Commanders camp, like just the whole area around, even outside of where they're practicing. You have all of the different tents that are going to have a lot of different things going on and everything like that. Everything looks organized. Everything looks clean. Only problem is it looks like they didn't water the grass. I know the DMV area has been getting with more heat than y'all typically are used to, and you know they're not properly watering the grass, and they need to do a better job with that. But outside of that, everything else looks nice, organized, looking like we're ready to go. It looks like we're in the full swing of not only just training camp, but football is back, man. College, NFL, we are back. I'm so excited. And then also, when you're taking a look at this angle right here, the only thing that I would say that looks somewhat wrong from this clip is that it doesn't seem like it's as much space for fans to sit, but maybe they'll add more later down the line, or maybe it's just a bring your own chair situation this time around. Last time they had those big bleachers. It doesn't seem like they have a similar situation as they did last year. We had people like Kevin Durant and all of the different politicians pulling up, trying to fight for the Commanders to build their new stadium in their respective areas. But I mean, maybe again, it's just like a bring your own chair situation. We'll see how that goes. And then also, you have an elite drone angle from Kerwin at DCKER NBC4, and he tweeted, "Fly around before the players do. A look from the sky at the Commanders practice facility the day before the players take the field. Happy to work with JP Finley and DCHESTON88 from my 26th camp with NBC Washington." And here's the drone footage right here. I'm not going to show the entire thing because I don't want to just completely take his content. So make sure you go check him out at DCKER NBC4 if you want like the full 59-second version of this clip. But I just wanted to give you like a little slice to basically entice you to go over there and watch the entire thing because he has like a great drone angle of the entire facilities. Also, as the players have been pulling up for training camp, especially the veterans, which that's what they were doing yesterday, as in Tuesday, July 23rd. Remember, the rookies reported, I believe, July 18th. The veterans reported the 23rd, while also having the Dan Quinn and Adam Peters press conference. That was all the same day. And as players were pulling up, Nikki Javala noticed that the Commanders players are staying at the Lansdowne Resort for training camp this year, and she went on to say, not exactly roughing it at all. The resort sits on 500 acres in the Potomac River Valley. Oh man, I remember the days I was calling it Potomac. I appreciate y'all for fixing that for me. Has 3 golf courses, 4 pools, 2 lighted tennis courts, and 3 pickleball courts. So the players are living in luxury right now. They're living very luxuriously for the whole training camp situation. It's not just some random hotel. Josh Harris has these guys right. They're on a resort for training camp. I don't know exactly if that helps with anything, if that's too much of a distraction, if it's good to relax that much and have that much fun outside of practice. Who knows? I guess we'll see. But I know the players definitely appreciate it. But again, speaking of the players pulling up, you have these clips right here where you have rookie 3rd round pick Brandon Coleman, who we need right now. We need him as soon as possible, start the left tackle for us. That's best case scenario. He's pulling up, as well as linebacker Frankie Louvu. You got cornerback Benjamin St. Juice. You got tight end Zach Ertz. You have punter Tress Way, who's always going to give some personality with his. He's never just going to walk in, say what's up like everybody else typically does. He's always going to give some type of personality. You also have defensive tackle Deron Payne. Everybody seems not only ready, but they seem pretty excited about staying on this resort. Some of these rookies, especially, this resort is probably way better than their living situations. So they feel like they're going to a fun summer camp rather than like an NFL training camp right now. But it's going to kick in once they really start to get to work. But again, this is the first non-Ron Rivera training camp we've had in a few years. And as you can see with Dan Quinn and Adam Peters walking in on the screen right now, it's just a completely different feeling, man. Like, it's just completely different. The whole air is different. Vibes different, everything's different. We are ready to go. And Adam Peters and Dan Quinn, you can see from their press conference how like really close they are. They're like this. Like, they have the same brain, same vision. They really like each other and they love what they're potentially building here for the Commanders. And we'll probably be seeing them leading our training camp press conferences for many years down the road. This seems like a very great long-term answer for us. And of course, they feel the same way. I mean, everybody was fired up. Even Dan Quinn and Adam Peters even talked about it. Adam Peters said, quote, "This is the most excited I've ever been for a training camp," unquote. Now, could that just be coach speak? Could that just be, I'm standing in front of y'all. This is my first time being a GM. Let me say the right thing that I think y'all want to hear. Does he actually mean it? I wouldn't be surprised if he actually means it, because then he also went on to say that the entire organization is excited and ready to go, from the players, the coaches, everybody. There's just like an energy everywhere where everybody is super excited and optimistic about what we have going on into this offseason. Everybody feels it. Hopefully a lot of y'all in the fan base feel it as well. I know I do, but I'm pretty sure when you're actually physically there around the coaches and players and front office guys like Adam Peters, it's probably even more infectious, where you really be like, man, we going to the Super Bowl, man. Forget all that talk, man. Super Bowl or bust. You get around them, it's probably going to feel to that point. But I'm not there, of course, but I just know I'm very excited just based off of what we've built, especially long term. 2024, like I've said, I've had my questions 2024, but long term, I'm not worried at all. I can easily project that these next 5 to 8 years will be the best 5 to 8 years that I've ever seen in my lifetime of being a Burgundy and Gold fan. So I'm very excited about that. And then you also have Barstool Nate, who talked about how big of a Dan Quinn fan he is after the press conference. He said, quote, "I like everything he said so far. I don't think it's PR or spin. I think he means what he says, and I'm so excited for tomorrow and to get this started," unquote. And he's talking about as far as tomorrow, technically today, because again, I'm late putting this video out there, Wednesday, July 24th, the first practice of the Commanders training camp with all of the new changes that we've had. Remember, just a couple of days ago was the 1-year anniversary of Josh Harris buying this team. And think of how new everything is for this organization since then. The front office, on the business side, the football side, coaches, players. And I mean, this is like the first training camp of all of that new. It's actually insane how different we are right now. But I also love the point that Barstool Nate, who is like a guy that will call the Commanders out when they're not doing well, like when they've been bad and when it seems like they're not on the right track, he will call them out for it. So for him to compliment them and to say that he truly believes that Dan Quinn means what he says, this is just not PR, not saying what he thinks the public wants to hear, what us fans and media members want to hear, or he's just trying to spin things. He like actually means what he says and says what he means. And so I'm very excited about that as well. Now the Jaden Daniels part of this. Quinn talked about Jaden Daniels, of course, and he said when he's ready to start, they'll know, we'll know, everybody will know type of thing. And he was asked, why is it important to not name Jaden Daniels the starter right now? Is it to keep him motivated? And his answer was basically something to the extent of like, they want to have competition everywhere. Like from the Commanders.com article that Zach Selby did, he said the Commanders have been patient when it comes to naming a starter for the 2024 season as far as quarterbacks go. And with camp officially kicking off tomorrow, or technically today, Quinn is still choosing to be silent about his intentions regarding whether Jaden Daniels or Marcus Mariota will take the first snap in week 1 of the regular season. Washington's approach, Quinn said, does not come from wanting to keep things under wraps. Rather, it's all a part of the process for the quarterback position as well as the rest of the roster. Again, so the thinking is, we're not just trying to hide this from y'all and we're just trying to stir up some drama or whatever, have everybody speculating and guessing. Really, the point is, and if you look at it from this angle, it makes a little bit more sense, even though overall, just go ahead and name him the starter. Like, I think a lot of this is quite pointless, but at least from his angle that he's saying it, and it's not like a rookie has to go out there and earn it type of thing per se, like a lot of coaches will just have that ego and say things like that and view it from that point. Dan Quinn is more so saying it as everything is new right now. Everything as far as training camp goes, everybody has to earn their starting spot. That's basically, no matter what position group it is, even if you are a second overall pick, first round, potential franchise quarterback, rookie quarterback, even you have to go out there. Training camp is basically a clean slate. We'll talk about it really soon, but he basically gave a quote to the extent of the OTAs and mandatory minicamps is more so evaluating them as people, as men. And then now training camp is when we're finally actually getting to evaluating people as football players. So this is just an open, wide open training camp battle for every spot on the team, every position group, no matter who you are. And then of course starting quarterback is part of that. This is not just he's a rookie, he's got to earn it over Marcus Mariota specifically, like a lot of teams do. This is more so just competition everywhere. Quinn also said, quote, it's not a secret, but it is a journey and a process. As we're going, when he's ready, as in Jaden Daniels will know, and when he's ready, he'll also know, unquote. But again, I'm with Tom Lavero of the WashingtonTimes.com when he said in his article talking about this situation, when Quinn was asked if it meant that Jaden Daniels is likely to start, he answered, well, in true competition, that's why we set it up as we did, to have Marcus have some and Jaden have some. So no declarations other than like being true to who we are as competitors. There's no doubt that Jaden's making unbelievable progress here and he'll have a really fun camp, but he's earned that opportunity to go compete. We wouldn't have given him those spaces and those times and those reps if he hadn't. But it was clear, really clear, that he's put in the work and he's ready to do that. So it was by intention for sure that he was able to do that, unquote. And just to remind y'all, Jaden Daniels took all of the starting reps and snaps in mandatory minicamps from days 1 through 3. All of it, first team, Jaden Daniels only. No back and forth, Marcus Mariota. No, not like OTAs. Mandatory minicamps, the most recent practices that we've had for the Washington Commanders, Jaden Daniels was the one and only starter. And you know, I'm maybe going into training camp, maybe they'll go back to like a back and forth situation where they both get starting reps, or maybe we just go straight in to Jaden Daniels being the starter, even if they don't officially announce out loud that Jaden Daniels is a starter. But again, going back to Tom Lavero with what he said in the Washington Times, he said that's an answer right out of the Rivera press conference manual. Nonsense. It's nonsense to believe anything other than Daniels being the Commanders starting quarterback when they open the season in Tampa Bay on September 8th. If not, then the recalibration may have actually become a recollapse. And I mean, I agree somewhat here. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Dan Quinn is basically being a Ron Rivera 2.0 when he's talking about these things, because again, I see it from the different angle that he's seeing it from, not just the typical Rivera or most coaches. Like a lot of coaches just do this where, again, the rookie just has to earn it, and it's just that simple, even though it's obvious he's better. It's more so training camp wise, this is going to be the first time we're really evaluating the football side of things, like for real. I mean, of course, I'm pretty sure they've been doing that. I mean, that's malpractice to not have already been doing that already. But like training camp is basically a fresh start. Whatever happened in mandatory mini camps, voluntary OTAs, rookie mini camps, and things like that, I mean, you don't necessarily wipe it away. I'm pretty sure it still holds some weight. But going into training camp is an open competition no matter who you are. Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, Jonathan Allen, no matter who, it's time to really see who earns those spots. And I'm pretty sure they're going to rotate everybody in and out. So that's why I disagree with the part that he's saying, that Tom Lovero's saying that this is basically another Ron Rivera type of quote. But I do agree that if Jaden Daniels is for some reason not starting week 1 of the regular season, then I agree with Tom Lovero when he says that this recalibration may actually be a recollapse, because if Jaden Daniels isn't ready to start week 1, something has gone terribly wrong. Because even just beyond the fact that you took a quarterback 2nd overall in the 1st round, that's already just like he better be starting week 1 type of situation. But even beyond that, he literally already looks better than Marcus Mariota from what we've seen and heard from everybody that's been going to the training camp practices, like people like Logan Paulson that really watches the film, the all 22 footage and things like that. And they're not even just saying because Jaden Daniels is more talented or he's younger or whatever, he's faster, he has the better arm. It's even like the advanced veteran stuff, the nuanced quarterback, like the things that are like above the neck, not below, not the arm strength, not the legs, not the mobility and things like that. Things like going through your progressions quicker. Things like finding the right answer when the defense presents a complicated coverage. Like Jaden Daniels has been better than Marcus Mariota at those things. Like, it's actually incredible. And so, when teams don't name a rookie quarterback the starter before training camp, I feel like teams typically wait until they're heading into week 1 of the preseason. Because by then, it's pretty much obvious who the starter is based on the preseason snaps and rotations that you're seeing in those games. So really, at that point, you're pretty much announcing it without actually even saying it out loud anyways. So basically, my point is, at the very latest, we'll find out that Jaden Daniels is probably the starter by week 1 of preseason. I don't think we'll have to wait until leading up to week 1 of the regular season. But also, typically when teams don't announce the rookie quarterback as the starter before training camp, they're typically not going to just do it randomly in the middle of training camp some random day. So we'll probably, if they haven't done it already, and again, we start practice today, even though I'm recording this right now at 3:56 a.m., but later on today, they start practice in basically like a few hours. If Jaden Daniels is not the starting quarterback by then we probably won't get like an official announcement until leading up to week 1 of the preseason. And again, we'll probably see Jaden Daniels get most, if not all, of the starting snaps anyway in practice, and that should tell you everything you need to know. So we don't really need to care about an official announcement, because I'm confident that he will not only be the starter for week 1 of the regular season, going into Tampa Bay to play them for the first game of the 2024 season, I'm also confident that he's going to be pretty good. So I'm not really worried about it, but I understand why some fans just want Dan Quinn to just go ahead and come out and say it. And then John Kahn brings up a great point. He said on Twitter, whenever Quinn is asked about his approach to the Daniels and situation of him starting, he brings it back to his overall approach. He just wants competition. Clearly, some will have it more than others, wants to make sure guys are ready, and will say it plays itself out, which goes back to my point that, again, this is not a Jaden Daniels thing. This is not a rookie quarterback thing specifically. This is not even just a quarterback thing at all specifically. This is the entire team, wide open training camp battle in every position group, especially kicker. I still don't even know who our starting kicker is right now. That's an ugly situation that I feel like people aren't talking about enough. Then John Kahn also brought up another great point on Twitter. Adam Peters, on what he's learned over the years dealing with young quarterbacks, he said, quote, "Everyone can see when that's happening. You want to let it happen naturally." Unquote. And basically, in other words, Daniels won't be handed the job. They want to make sure he's ready before naming him the starter. So they basically just at least want to see him in training camp somewhat. Even though he already looks better than Marcus Mariota, you just never know. Going into training camp, what's the rush in basically naming him the starter right now? And then say for some ridiculous reason, highly doubt it, would bet money that this doesn't happen, but for some reason we get to training camp and Jaden Daniels looks worse than Marcus Mariota for whatever reason, and then once you've named Jaden Daniels the starter already going into training camp, and for some ridiculous reason he looks worse than Marcus Mariota, then that's an uglier situation. So why not just wait to name him the starter until we at least get one training camp practice done and you see Jaden Daniels looks like the guy, and then you're more comfortable with going ahead and naming him that guy, because it's way more PR cleanup and more of a PR mess if you name him the starter now and then he looks bad. That's like the worst case scenario as far as PR goes there. But before we move on, I do want to know in the comment section, do you agree with how head coach Dan Quinn and general manager Adam Peters are handling this Jaden Daniels situation right now with not naming him the starting quarterback. Do you see their side of the logic again? I would just go ahead and name him the starter, me personally, but I'm just giving you all of this other side thing. I'm being devil's advocate to basically speak on behalf of Dan Quinn and Adam Peters because they're not here to defend themselves right now. I'm just basically trying to give you their viewpoint as to why they have not named the starter yet. Again, me as a Rico of Street Scores, he would have been named the starter since back when Caleb Williams was named the starter for the Chicago Bears. They named him the starter immediately. So that's just me, but let me know how y'all feel about that in the comment section. Do you feel like they're overthinking it? Should they just go ahead and name him the starter now, or do you just trust what they're doing? I mean, at the end of the day, they get paid millions of dollars. They're the experts, so whatever they feel is right, I'm just going to go ahead and put my full faith into that. They have fully earned the benefit of the doubt until they've ever reached the point that they don't, and I don't feel like I'll ever reach that point with this new regime here. Again, I think they're the long-term answer to provide me the best 5 to 8 years that I've ever had as a burgundy and gold fan. I'm really excited about the future of this team, but again, at the end of the day, I personally feel like Jaden Daniels should start, but at the super end of the day, whatever Dan Quinn and Adam Peters says goes. I'm with it. I'm riding with it 100%. So let me know how y'all feel about that. Now, next up, another controversial topic is Brandon Aiyuk, and we have some major updates from both sides, from the Commanders side and the 49ers side. John Lynch, their general manager, who Adam Peters, he was the assistant general manager under John Lynch before he became the general manager here. So now they're pretty much on the same tier of controlling and running an NFL team. So now they're basically peers of each other. They're really healthy competition now, which is pretty cool. Went from being his protege to now like they're basically going head to head, and I'm assuming, looking again at the next 5-8 years, where it's probably going to be a lot of Adam Peters versus John Lynch in the playoffs type of situations. I'm really excited. But either way, with the Brandon Aiyuk situation, apparently Commanders general manager Adam Peters talked about Brandon Aiyuk posting a picture of the Commanders practice film on TikTok. He said, quote, "We handled that internally. We're not concerned about that," unquote. He also emphasized that it was a still photo. That's it. And that Brandon Aiyuk did not and does not have access to actual Commanders practice footage, especially in video form. That picture that we saw is all that Brandon Aiyuk basically saw, is what he's saying. Like, this is not a situation that we got to worry about. Shouts out to Nikki Javala of the Washington Post. She said the Commanders general manager Adam Peters said San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk did not have Washington practice footage, despite posting what appeared to be a screenshot of practice tape featuring quarterback Jaden Daniels on social media this month, and Washington addressed the matter internally. Aiyuk, whose contract negotiations with the 49ers have played out publicly largely because of his comments and interviews and activity on social media accounts, created a stir by sharing the still of Daniels' during practice. First and foremost, he did not have practice footage, Peters said in a wide-ranging news conference alongside Coach Dan Quinn on Tuesday, July 23rd, a day before Commanders open training camp practice, which is again starting today by the time you're watching this. Quote, "A still? Yeah, but we handled it internally, and we're unconcerned with that," unquote. One person with knowledge of the situation added that the team addressed the matter with Daniels, but did not issue a fine nor any other form of discipline, just to let you know. So Jaden Daniels is good. They probably just talked to him. They didn't feel the need to go above and beyond to punish him for any reason, and I like that. Just talk to him, let him know, hey man, stop messing up like that, and we should be good to go. Also, this is a big time update though, and this is probably the part that a lot of people probably came to this video for the most part. In a recent report by Pro Football Talks Mike Florio, the Commanders, along with 4 other NFL teams, were willing to pay Aiyuk whatever he wanted if a trade could have been worked out. So it sounds like from the Commander side of things is that the problem with getting Aiyuk is not paying him, is trading for him. Apparently, the 49ers are probably asking for more than what the Commanders are willing to give up. But cap space wise, but paying Brandon Aiyuk long-term wise, apparently the Commanders are on board with that, and there is some interest there. The problem is the Commanders and the 49ers, along with other teams right now, the 49ers and other teams just can't see eye to eye on trade terms right now. That's a kind of like a breaking news situation right there. The fact that the Commanders are like, yeah, we'll pay him. That's not the problem. It's getting him before we pay him. That's the problem. And then Mike Florio also said, quote, there were 5 teams, we're told, who were ready to pay Aiyuk whatever he wanted before the draft. Now, this is before the draft. Who knows if this interest is still here? Maybe they're so focused on training camp, it's like just beyond them now. It's in the past. They're not worried about it. And especially, again, we're saying this is happening before the draft. So this is before a lot of the ridiculous antics that he's pulled, all of the stunts that he's pulled on social media that's been bringing Jaden and Daniels into it and everything, including the still photo that had Adam Peters and those guys talk to Jaden Daniels internally, personally, to address the situation. So before all of that is when we're getting this news that the Commanders were willing to pay him whatever he wanted. The problem, and that's interesting too, because the 49ers are not. The 49ers don't have to trade for him. He's already currently on the team, whereas 5 other teams outside of the 49ers, including the Commanders, are willing to pay him whatever he wants. The problem is trading for him and then having to pay for him. But again, all of this news that we're talking about right now came out before all of this Brandon Aiyuk drama, including the steal. So maybe the Commanders don't feel the same. Maybe now, after all of the drama and bringing his best friend Jaden Daniels into the situation to basically get him in trouble with his own team, maybe the Commanders are kind of off it a little bit. Who knows? We'll see. But continuing with Mike Florio here, he said, quote, regardless, there were 5 teams, we're told, who were ready to pay Aiyuk whatever he wanted before the draft. If they could also reach an acceptable trade terms with the 49ers, he would have been traded. Florio reported. He continued to say, quote, that part didn't happen. It's unclear what the 49ers wanted at the time. They apparently rejected an offer of a 2nd-round pick from the Patriots. Other interested teams were and potentially still are the Steelers and the Commanders, unquote. And again, a lot of this information is talking about the Commanders and 4 other teams willing to pay Brandon Aiyuk what he wanted before the draft. But then Michael Florio ends there with saying, even after all of this, even up to this point, the Steelers and the Commanders are still at least somewhat interested. Are they willing to pay him the money that they were before all of this drama, before the draft? Who knows? But right now, the Commanders are still at least interested in potentially getting Brandon Aiyuk. But right now, we're so far apart in reaching a trade agreement as far as like what the Commanders are willing to give up and what the 49ers are demanding from teams that is, I would bet money it's not going to happen at all. But Ian Rappaport also went on to tweet earlier today, well after the Commanders had their press conference, that 49ers star wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk is reporting to training camp. That's another part of this that's breaking news. Sources tell me and Mike Garafolo, despite his desires for a new contract, the team has not held extensive contract talks since May, and because of that, Aiyuk has requested a trade. So all of this drama, all of this social media stuff, throwing temper tantrums, basically all of this, and then he went on to request a trade. But again, I broke down the difference between requesting a trade and demanding a trade. And then on top of that, now he's reporting to training camp like nothing's wrong, which is crazy. Because again, they haven't even really discussed contract numbers since May. And he's reporting to training camp like, what type of holdout is this? They haven't even tried to talk numbers with you since May. They told you what their price was in May. You did all of these different antics and brought all of this drama, which has even brought in Jaden Daniels of the Commanders into it, and they haven't even given you a chance to talk numbers since the price they gave you in May. They haven't moved off of it at all since, and you still showed up to practice. So he's clearly not as upset as we thought that he would be about this whole situation. All of those antics, and he's not even sitting out of training camp. You have several players around the NFL right now who have had nowhere near the level of drama centered around them and the attention that Aiyuk has had this offseason, and they're still sitting out of training camp or missing it for whatever reason. So Aiyuk clearly does not want to be traded that bad, and most importantly, the 49ers clearly don't want to trade him. Because you also have John Lynch, who said once again that he expects wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk to be a Niner this season and beyond, and calls him an integral part of the team. And asked whether Aiyuk will participate in practice when training camp opens, Lynch said that he expects all of his players to be at practice, and he was right. Brandon Aiyuk is pulling up to practice as if he's not in this contract dispute right now and causing all of this drama. It's like a weird situation where, again, there are players that cause way less drama on social media and bring way less attention to themselves, and maybe not even requested a trade, that are sitting out of training camp practices. This guy did all of that, and he's not even sitting out. Is just amazing to me. But when specifically asked about Aiyuk being traded, Lynch said, quote, no absolutes there, unquote. And that's not a 100% no. So it sounds like maybe the 49ers are still listening to some trade offers, maybe a little bit, but they just haven't heard anything anywhere near their price. And my main takeaway from this is that Well, we'll talk about this. We'll see what's going on with this in 2025. 2024 wise, we might as well just go ahead and start ignoring this Brandon Aiyuk situation. Of course, anything crazy happens, any other important updates happen as far as Brandon Aiyuk goes, I will update y'all on those. But from my standpoint, I don't think Brandon Aiyuk is going anywhere from the 49ers in the 2024 season. I think he'll just end up leaving as a 2025 free agent, and then we can start to talk about Brandon Aiyuk to the Commanders situations and things like that. Because again, the problem was the Commanders didn't want to trade for him, but paying him the money that he wants, they're willing to do that. So we'll probably be a major player in the Brandon Aiyuk sweepstakes once the 2025 offseason hits, but that has absolutely zero to deal with what's going on in 2024. But you know what does? A Johnny Newton injury update. Second round rookie defensive tackle Johnny Newton injury update on the way. So the Commanders placed Johnny Newton on the NFI list last week. And when talking about Johnny Newton today yesterday as in Tuesday, July 23rd, Adam Peters said, quote, he's been outstanding in his rehab. We've actually had to hold him back. We expect him to be ready sooner rather than later when we release the reins, unquote. And this could just be coach speak, who knows? But if that is actually true, that is great news that he will be ready sooner rather than later. So it sounds like we could potentially expect him to be ready before preseason, which will be great. And again, I really want to point out the fact that they've had to basically sit him down and say, hey man, slow down. There's no need to rush. And Adam Peters even said, we're not playing games anytime soon, unquote. And I'm pretty sure that's the message that they've constantly had to just keep telling Newton over and over again, just regurgitating that same sentence to him over and over again that, hey, man, I know you're anxious about getting back. I know you're a rookie and you want as many snaps as you can get before going into your rookie regular season. But, man, it's not worth it right now. We're not playing games yet. Don't make a bad situation worse. Just chill out. And I like the fact that Johnny Newton is hungry. That's how it's supposed to be. The player's supposed to want to push themselves and be hungry and try to get back as soon as possible. And then it takes the coaches and the front office guys to be like, wait a minute, you don't need to do all of that just yet. This is how it's supposed to be. This is typically how it goes. This is how it's supposed to be. So far, nothing great, nothing bad, just more of so like a check mark. This is typically how these situations go. Now, special teams wise, Bowie TV Sports, Candy Waller had a chance to ask Commanders head coach Dan Quinn about his progress on implementing the new kickoff return rules. And I feel like this was something that a lot of people weren't talking about. I feel like this is very important. This is huge. This could be game changing. Like whichever team hops up on these new kickoff rules and takes advantage of them and develops the right strategies to get the most out of it and maximize their efficiency with them and things like that. Whatever team is basically best at these kickoff rules the soonest is probably going to win more games simply just because of that. And so I feel like this is something that a lot more people need to pay attention to. It seems like at least our team is, but it just seems like amongst the media and fan bases, a lot of people don't really care about this. They're not really concerned about it, but this is important. And so he said a lot of interesting things in that like 1 minute and 30-second clip answering the question. But one of the main things that he pointed out was that this will be far more running back friendly than previous kick returning rules and setups have allowed to be. Running back vision will be huge now. It's not just about being super fast and quick like it used to be. It's more so like literally, I mean, you're basically a running back there now, the way that the kickoff rules are set up, and you got to find the right holes and make the right decisions. And of course, a lot of us assume that this will be the case, that this will be a lot more running back friendly back when they announced the rule changes months ago. But now we have confirmation from the head coach himself that yeah, it's going to be a lot more running backs being prioritized when it comes to making the 53-man roster being utilized in kickoffs than wide receivers used to be, because we really need that vision. Still need you to be quick, still need you to be have fast acceleration, be agile and things like that, but we really need that vision. And if you're a wide receiver, it doesn't matter how athletic you are, if you don't have that vision, you're no longer a kick returner. Whereas pretty much as long as I can remember with how the kickoff returns have been going my entire life, and even before that, you didn't really need vision. It was kind of obvious, like there's a big hole there. Let me just be an elite athlete and get to that hole before it closes. Now, you need to be able to analyze multiple lanes and figure out what's the best one to go through. So this is going to be really interesting to see what this kickoff return competition even looks like in training camp. And of course, kicker right now, huge problem right now for our team. Arguably our biggest weakness, because we literally don't know who our starting kicker is right now. We're not in a good situation at all. But now moving on to some more quotes, really important pieces of information that also came from this press conference yesterday. Great line from Dan Quinn about the beginning of training camp. He said, quote, "You only get one shot with a whole new group, and we're not going to miss that shot," unquote. And I like that quote, man. That's an interesting point of view. Like, this is the first time that we're starting over with an entirely new regime and everything, and we got to get this off to the right start, because if we don't, this could set us back several years. Same thing with the draft, same way they handled the free agency, same way they handled the hiring process, all of that. You got to start right. Your start and your first impression has a way larger impact on your future than subsequent seasons. Like, this season, this offseason mattered way more than next offseason, than the offseason after that, and any of those. It's going to have a much larger impact, so I completely agree there. Dan Quinn also said that he liked the fact that during spring, they used that time, quote, to find out about the man before the ball player, unquote, which goes back to what I foreshadowed earlier, that now going into training camp, they're going to focus more so on the X's and O's and who's better at what and what situations and things like that. They were more so looking at practice habits, off the field things, or technically on the field, but like how are you mentally? What is your mentality? What is your work ethic and things like that? What's your chemistry, your leadership and things like that? Now going into training camp, we're finally getting to just pure football. Also, shouts out to my boy at the Burgundy Zone for pointing this out too, because he said, telling point by Dan Quinn in today's presser, yesterday's. He says that perceived weaknesses from outside looking in, media members, fan bases, other teams or whatever, may be seen as strengths to this coaching staff. I thought that was really interesting. So he's basically saying what a lot of y'all think may be a weakness on this team, we may actually see it as a strength. Shouts out to my boy at Commander's Realm for rewording it. He tweeted, DQ was asked a lot about the perceived roster holes and weaknesses and seemed adamant that those can be fixed by putting players in the right positions. I love that. They feel like they're ready to actually coach. I mean, remember the initial press conference when Joey Jr. and all of those guys finally got to speak for the first time in front of us, and they made it known that we are going to coach these guys. We're not just going to rely on their talent. We're going to put them in situations to succeed as often as possible. And that continues that exact mantra, basically. And Commander's Realm goes on to finish saying, I like hearing that better than the old, quote, this player needs to adhere to the scheme and stop freelancing spiel that we used to get all of the time. And I completely agree. These coaches are going to actually do their job is basically all that says right there. I'm really excited. And they're not going to pigeonhole players to certain situations and play styles. We just need you to go out there and be great. We're going to set you up to succeed, and we want you to go do what you got to do to succeed. And Dan Quinn also said, as far as the Commanders and what they need to grow on as far as going through training camp, he said, quote, like most things, when you're pleased with where you're at, that's where you'll stay, unquote. And basically he's saying the mentality is that we're never going to really be happy with where we are, because once you do, you start to get complacent and you stop advancing, you stop developing, you stop getting better. We need to constantly have the mentality of we need to get better. Yeah, that's cool. That's a nice achievement that we reached. That's a nice goal that we got to, but we need to keep looking forward. And I really like that as well. I mean, a lot of really interesting quotes out of here. Commanders head coach Dan Quinn also said that he wants to create a physical and fast football team, which is something that they've been saying this entire offseason. They've reiterated and reworded it all types of ways. You can tell they truly mean it. He wants that to become their identity. That's the identity that we will have. And Scott Abraham asked Dan Quinn when he knows that identity is taking shape. He said, Dan Quinn said, quote, while playing really fast, excellent execution, not as much thinking, but the reaction, unquote. I love that answer right there. So they want these players to think less, do more, move more. You're really talented. There's a reason you reached the NFL level. There's a reason you were a first round pick or whatever. You're a Pro Bowler, and we don't want you to overthink things and play worse because of it. We want to put you in situations to succeed, not only as much as possible, but for you to play as naturally as possible, to play as instinctually as possible, to where your body just seems to be moving on its own because you just feel like you know what you're supposed to be doing, where you need to go, when you need to be there, and things like that. So I love that mentality as well. We're not going to overthink things. This defense will not be overly complicated to the point that we have a bunch of 80-yard bombs being thrown on us because of miscommunication in the backfield and things like that. Adam Peters also talked to JP Finley about the balance of long-term goals versus immediacy of the coming season. He said, quote, "It's something you're always trying to do as far as like balancing both. This is a not for long league," unquote. And when he says not for long, that's basically like another acronym for NFL, National Football League, but also not for long league. And Adam Peters is acknowledging that they're like, yeah, I mean, I'm here to bring long-term greatness, but that doesn't mean we're basically just going to punt on this first season. We want to win right now as well, and they're trying to find that perfect balance, and I love that. I mean, yeah, maybe you can say you can't have your cake and eat it too, but why not at least try, man? Because you never know. Some teams do it. I'm not saying we're going to be the 2023 Houston Texans, but it is possible. It's not impossible. It's not very likely, but it's not impossible. And I love the fact that we're reaching for that greatness. We're not just settling on the fact that, well, it's just year one, and year one, we've had so much roster turnover, the most in the NFL. This is the most change we've had in one offseason as a burgundy and gold team since World War II ended, because we had the players leave and we had to use replacements and things like that. And we're not going to use that as an excuse to basically just assume week one will be somewhat of a failure, or even just the crutch of, well, you only won 4 games last season. How about we just go out there and win 5 and everybody should be happy? They're not even using that as a crutch. They're just going in with the mentality, we need to win now. But they're also at the same time, this is where the balance comes in, not mortgaging the future to do so. So the most important thing is to win long term, but you don't neglect short term as well while doing so. And I love the fact that they're really striving for the ideal situation rather than just, we're just here to win long term. This is supposed to be a slow burning process and all of those type of things. I love it. That was one of my favorite quotes and situations from the whole press conference. And he said that the staff is looking ahead like 2-3 years with everything that they do, but he said that he's personally focused on helping the team win right now. So you kind of have different people in different roles. Some people looking ahead, some people looking at now, maybe some people doing a mix of both. I love it. Also, Nikki Javala tried to ask after today's presser was over, like literally while Dan Quinn and guys are getting up, whether the Giants actually attempted to trade up and go get Jaden Daniels in the draft. We saw in the clip that Giants head coach from the Hard Knocks actually straight up said, like, yeah, I want to trade up for Jaden Daniels if we can. If you can make it happen, let's do it, type of thing. And basically, Dan Quinn said that they didn't even answer. So maybe the Giants called and Dan Quinn and those guys already knew that they were taking Jaden Daniels. So what's the point of even answering this call? I'm thinking that's basically what he meant by that, which I thought was pretty interesting. And then also, before we get to other NFL news, just some interesting things that don't necessarily concern the Commanders, but they are our enemies. So, we got to kind of scout the enemy every now and then when we get these training camp updates, even though, out of like an hour-long training camp breakdown of a practice, like say tomorrow, we actually see clips and we get information about what's going on in practice. Well, today, as in Wednesday, July 24th, not tomorrow. But we actually see what happens in practice enough to where I can do a full breakdown of what the quarterbacks did, the running backs did, the wide receivers did, tight ends, all the way down to defense, special teams, everything like that. Let's say we get to that point where we can do that. I'm also going to include here's this update from the Cowboys. Here's this update from the Eagles and Giants that Commanders fans should be happy about. Like any negative news coming from our division rivals training camps, I'm gonna keep y'all updated on those things or anything else. So these are gonna be like 95% Commanders videos for like hours, like an hour long, but we're also gonna have like a 5% just to kind of not just stay pigeonholed to the Commanders only. I want you to be aware and knowledgeable of what's going on around the NFL as well, especially major moments. So before we get to all of that, I also want to remind y'all, shout out to Nikki Javala, because she brought up a great point that the Commanders continue to potentially look at roster changes like all teams throughout camp and preseason. Remember that they are number 2 in the waiver wire order. That helps big time. Shout out to my boy Disco, who tweeted that and said, this is major news. Being number 2 in order gives you a great shot at a good player that gets cut from a camp. Plus, we got a little cash to spend too as well. I completely agree. We have the second most cap space in the NFL right now, and then we're second in waiver wire order. Come on, man. You couldn't ask for a better position to potentially wind up getting a really good player that ends up getting cut for whatever reason from another team. We have one of the best shots at jumping on that. I'm assuming that the Panthers are the guys with the number 1 waiver wire order, because even though they didn't pick first overall, they still were the worst team last year. They just traded that pick to the Bears. So I'm assuming that the Panthers are first in waiver wire order, and we're probably second. Now, just to, if we ever do dip our toe into that waiver wire, I'm assuming that kicker and left tackle will probably be the positions that we have our eye on the most while looking at other rosters around the league for cut candidates that we may pursue and things like that. Kicker, left tackle, but there's probably other ones too. Maybe linebacker, maybe some receiver depth. You never know. Probably, of course, this is a completely new rebuild. So we're evaluating every single position group right now. We're not even exactly sure. I'm pretty sure, you can kind of guess what our strengths and weaknesses are right now, but we don't know for sure. So they're probably evaluating every single position group. But if I had to bet, say we made 2 waiver wire additions, I would bet it's a kicker and a left tackle, probably a close third, maybe receiver, maybe. We'll see. Now let's move on to some random and interesting NFL news out there. First of all, I don't know if y'all saw this, and I know this isn't like breaking news, but I just thought this was so funny and entertaining that I needed to show y'all just in case y'all missed it. So apparently, in this clip right here, the Browns security team is working on their tackle a fan on the field drills. That's what they're doing. It makes sense, but I don't think I've ever seen this being used as practice. Like the security team, just like the football players and the coaches are coming in for training camp, you also have the security coming in like, all right, let's get right, because these fans act crazy. And I don't know if the Cleveland Browns fans just have more of a propensity to do that than other teams' fan bases at their stadiums, but their security team clearly isn't playing about it. Now, moving on, and we're probably just going to run through these rapid fire because there's no reason to sit on these too long, because again, these aren't Commanders issues or situations. But also, Raiders wide receiver Michael Gallup is retiring from the NFL. Remember, he just left the Cowboys recently. Now he's just calling it quits. Also, speaking of the Cowboys star CeeDee Lamb is not reporting to camp, and they have an ugly situation right now because Dak Prescott is about to take their whole cap space, their entire cap space. I think he's literally waiting for Jordan Love to get his ridiculous market-setting, record-setting contract, a never-before-seen per year worth contract that sets a record for the NFL in history. And I think Dak Prescott is literally waiting for that one to wrap up so he can beat that record immediately after that. Then you have CeeDee Lamb, and then you still got to worry about paying Trevon Diggs and Michael Parsons eventually as well. The Cowboys are in cap space hell right now. We'll see who they prioritize, but they're not going to be able to keep everybody. There's no way they keep Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons. One or two of those guys are going to end up leaving. They may only be able to keep one of them long term. We'll see how that goes. But just as future optimism as a Commanders fan, somebody's going to end up leaving from that trio. And then again, on top of that, you're going to have to pay Trevon Diggs and other players as well. So it's not looking too good for the Cowboys long term. Also, Eagles wise, and of course, I'm not rooting for injuries, but just to update y'all that remember the Eagles traded up with us to go get Cooper DeJean, the defensive back, and now he will begin camp on NFI just like our Johnny Newton is. So I guess we have a rookie, a highly touted second round pick rookie on NFI. So do the Eagles, just to kind of compare our struggles. And then also, of course, I know a lot of y'all know, but Vikings offensive tackle Christian Darrisaw agreed to a big time 4-year deal worth up to $113 million in new money with $77 million guaranteed. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because in 2021, the Commanders decided to take Jamin Davis with the 19th overall pick, and Christian Darrisaw was there for us to take, and then he ended up going 23rd to the Vikings, and the Vikings still appreciate the fact that we took Jamin Davis over Christian Darrisaw, which sucks. And also, before we get up out of here, shouts out to my boy Mason Kinahan. He was able to get 96 votes with this question, but I'm curious how y'all feel in the comment section about this, on top of everything else that I'm curious about how y'all feel and y'all opinions on everything that we talked about in this video. But also, before we go, he asks, which Commander has the most to prove this offseason? He had Jamin Davis, Fadarian Mathis, Emmanuel Forbes, and other. So far, from the 96 votes that he had, and I believe the survey concluded, so this is the final result, Emmanuel Forbes won by a landslide with 70.8%. Jamin Davis second place with 19.8%. Fadarian Mathis third with 7.3%, and other only had 2.1%. So just to let you know, everybody's looking at Emmanuel Forbes like, what you gonna do this year? And now I can see the argument for Jamin Davis because his contract actually ends. Emmanuel Forbes still on contract for another 2 years after this season. So it's kind of like, even if you don't go out there and play well, are we going to cut you or are we going to trade you or whatever? I don't think he's at high of a risk of not being on the Commanders in 2025 as Jamin Davis is. So that's the only argument I will have for Jamin Davis. But Emmanuel Forbes, I understand why a lot of people have their attention centered on him as their answer. But let me know how you feel about that answer as well. But also, of course, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in the video. Please still farm that like button, still farm the subscription button, still farm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content, man. I really appreciate y'all. Make sure you stay tuned because, again, I will keep y'all updated on every little thing the Commanders have going on. Y'all know we're getting back to the daily uploads. I really appreciate y'all patience. And again, once I finally have even a little bit of time, I really want to sit down and get to the comment sections and read and reply to all of the comments that y'all have been leaving on several videos dating back to like the past few weeks. I'm so sorry I've missed all of the compliments, all of the questions. If you have anything that you really want me to see, just repeat that comment, question, or whatever in another video as well. I don't basically label that as spamming. You know, the same comment in the same video over and over again, that's spamming. But if you ask me the same question in multiple videos until I see it, I actually appreciate that. So definitely do that. And of course, let me know how you feel in the comment section about everything. The Brandon Aiyuk situation, Jaden Daniels not starting. Again, with this most recent question I asked you about which commander has the most approved this offseason, let me know if you have somebody outside of Jamin Davis, for Darian Mathis, and Emmanuel Forbes that will be a selection for that. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in the video, even the fact that the Dallas Cowboys are not looking too good long term with their cap space situation. How you feel about all of that? Johnny Newton's injury, do you feel like he'll be ready before preseason? All of that. And of course, do not leave this video without leaving a like, man. I really appreciate y'all. Stay tuned for the content. Again, I'm keeping y'all updated on everything the Commanders have going on, every practice that we have any information, any access to. We get any clips from it, I'm gonna give you the clips. We get any information from it, who's playing well, who's playing poorly, who looks like a starter, what are our potential starting lineup projections right now, depth chart and things like that, and injury updates. Hopefully we don't have any of those. I have y'all updated on every little thing, so make sure I stay tuned for all of that. I really appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.